Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lucas Wacker. With me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman, and it is NASCAR Championship weekend at Phoenix Raceway, everybody. This is it, the big finale for all three National Touring Series, and it's going to be one big showdown in the desert with practice and qualifying back for all three series here this weekend, and a champion will be crowned in the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and, of course, the Cup Series on Sunday. So a massive weekend in store. This is what we all build up to since the start back in February. This is what it all comes down to in November. So lots of different storylines going into this weekend, not just the championship, which is obviously the main one, but some good, interesting underlying stories, some final races for some guys with some teams, the final race for the Gen 6 car as well this weekend. So kind of an end of an era, if you will, and putting the nice book end to a chapter here that has spanned from 2013 with that Cup Series car. So we've seen plenty of aero packages. We're running the 750 this weekend for the Cup Series. And of course, the trucks kick it all off on Friday night with the Xfinity Series Saturday night and the Cup Series on Sunday afternoon. So we'll break it all down today. We're going to give our championship predictions and kind of just preview what the weekend may look like, and as well as our fantasy preview for the final time this season. So Kyle has wrapped up that championship for quite some time now, but we're doing it for fun anyways.
Got to finish it off, we got to see who's the NASCAR champion,
Exactly. We have to see how they do it here. We'll see, like, if you win this weekend, then you officially win everything. But
I need to win this weekend because I need to have that. I can't have you doing the same thing I tried to pull for like the past however many months. So
I'm trying to take this as seriously as I can. But before we get into all of that, Kyle, how are you doing today? I know you're not the biggest fan of the playoff format, but it's the Game 7 moment. This is it. This is what the season all comes down to.
Yeah, it's the Game 7 moment. We know it's coming from day one. But anyways, gotta love the playoff format, right? But no, I'm doing good. I'm excited for this weekend. Of course, championship weekend, there's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be some career defining moments for a lot of drivers here, both in the Cup Series with some guys looking to win their first championship, like a Denny Hamlin, like a Kyle Larson, looking to cap off fantastic seasons in very different ways. When you look at the wins from Larson versus the consistency of Hamlin, looking for Chase Elliott to go back-to-back. I believe the first one looking to go back-to-back since Dale Earnhardt. So it's been a while, to say the least, since anybody's been able to do that. And then Truex Jr. looking to get back to that championship form as well. So a lot of things to look at in the Cup Series, but also down in the lower series, you look at a couple of veterans looking for championships in the Xfinity Series, their first. You look at Austin Cindric looking to go back-to-back before going to Cup. You look at Noah Gregson looking to really define something in hopes of getting a Cup Series ride in the next couple of seasons. And then in the Truck Series as well, you've got a bunch of different stuff going on with Jon Hunter Nemechek looking to kind of vilify or solidify the reason he went back down to the Truck Series to go out and win a championship. You look at Zane Smith winning his way in, trying to be the representative for GMS, all these different things. There's a lot of great storylines to follow going into this weekend, in addition to the smaller stuff like different points battles, looking to get top 20 bonuses, all these kind of things. So even though I'm not a big fan of the playoff format, the one thing you can't deny is that it makes for an entertaining finale to the finish or to the season. I do wish that it was more than 4 cars that they focus on during the races, but the format is the way that it is, and hopefully it'll be a good weekend of racing regardless.
Yeah, and the track comes down to that, and we're not obviously the biggest fan of Phoenix hosting that championship finale.
Yeah. I love Phoenix, the track, and racing on it on iRacing and all that kind of stuff, but it's just not a great championship track when you look at something like Homestead that it's replacing and stuff like that.
Definitely. Before we get into the fantasy preview, just some final goodbyes, really, for what we're looking at this season. The final weekend for a lot of things, especially on the Cup Series side. The big one, obviously, the next gen car coming into effect in 2022. This is the final race for the Gen 6. They're going to run the next gen at the Coliseum in LA as the preseason opener next year. So final goodbye for this era of car that has seen so many different versions of horsepower packages, aero packages. It's just been all over the place. And at times it's provided some of the best racing we may have ever seen. And at times it's been very lackluster and disappointing. So it's just been kind of a topsy-turvy kind of journey over the past eight seasons. And we'll stay as optimistic as we can with what the next gen car has in store. It's a make or break kind of era for NASCAR in terms of the on-track product that they're going to be putting on starting next season. So Do you have a favorite moment, Kyle, from the Gen 6 era? I know it's probably a bit difficult to pinpoint, but is there anything that stands out to you that you look back fondly on over the past 8 seasons?
It's going to be from a biased perspective, but I think that's the way that you're pushing it anyways.
Yeah.
It's our favorite. It's not the best or anything like that. It's the one that we will always remember. And for me, it's got to be the Truex championship in the 78. Just having a Canadian crew chief, but not only a Canadian crew chief, the one that's from my hometown, that went to my high school in Colburn, being able to win a championship there. His involvement in NASCAR is one of the main reasons why I got back into the sport after kind of losing it for a few years there. His involvement and learning about him and how the 78 team had gone from a mid-pack backmarker team to all of a sudden this kind of underdog hero story of a championship contender, and having him at the helm of it was a fantastic thing and storyline to follow and really get me back hardcore into racing in general, not just NASCAR. And so having that race go all the way down to the final few laps, I know that's a tough one for you, but a great championship battle right down to the last few laps, a great battle at the end of things, and a great weekend of racing as well, that whole weekend when you think about the William Byron Championship and things like that. So it was a great weekend in general, but specifically thinking about this generation of cars and stuff like that, the moment that I'll always remember is the Truex Championship, with Cole Pearn becoming the first Canadian crew chief to win a championship.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty special moment. If I have to look back on that, it's obviously not great. Because I really do feel like that was one that Kyle Busch really missed out on. Just in that race specifically, Truex deserved it season long. Of course, he was the most dominant car, but Kyle Busch had the car to beat in that race, the strategy to beat, and then the caution messed it up. And it just didn't quite fall his way at the end of things there. But mine is pretty straightforward. The 2 championships.
No, you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
Then I'm going to absolutely pick 2015. It's not even close. 2015, I was a young 15-year-old, and I've been waiting for that moment my entire life to see him win the championship. And the fact that this era of car is where those 2 championships have happened. It wasn't the COT era. It wasn't the Gen 4 era. It wasn't all that. It's this era of car where he's actually broke through, got those 2 championships. Of course, I wish he was going for a third this weekend. But it is what it is. He's been the most successful driver over this car in terms of championships. We'll see what happens this weekend. Somebody could tie him with that, either Truex or Elliott. If they win it, they could match him with 2 championships. But I'm hopeful that's not the case, because I would love to say Kyle Busch had the best era of the Gen 6 car. Not the greatest end to it per se in terms of the last 2 seasons wins wise, but those 2 championships, especially 2015 after the comeback story that he had that year, it was an unbelievable journey. And I remember the emotions watching that race. I was just finished up a soccer game on the Xfinity Series race where he broke his leg and his foot. And I was just like, oh my God, I was heartbroken. And then the reports came out, later that night that he was going to miss the race. We'd already booked tickets to go to Phoenix to try and meet him. And it was just heartbreaking because I've never met Kyle Busch, and it would be my dream one day too. But
Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I could keep it together, but that's that whirlwind of emotions that season brought for me, and it was definitely something I'll remember for the rest of my life. So feel really great about this era of car. Largely in terms of those championships, it left a positive taste in my mouth at the end of it all. But I know for some people it hasn't been as fortuitous or as prosperous if you have a favorite driver or not. But definitely some great moments. 2014 was the best racing season probably for this car, especially on mile and a half and stuff like that. So lots of great moments, lots of great finishes. And this is going to be the end of the road. Hopefully we go out with one last big bang here for the Gen 6 car. Next up, Brad Keselowski, his final race at Team Penske. I honestly never thought he would leave that place after going there when he signed in the Xfinity Series days and then worked his way up to becoming a Cup Series champion in 2012. It's going to feel really, really weird seeing Brad Keselowski not behind the wheel of the 2 car. And I think, he did a great video on social media, kind of saying thanks to Roger Penske and just kind of taking a trip down memory lane. It's just not going to look the same over there at Team Penske. He's really built something special there He was the main one that started the success, the revamp of Team Penske after having a bit of a down period there where, not to say that Kurt Busch was terrible, but it wasn't a great era for the team where they were kind of struggling for consistency, and they didn't quite have the race winning ability and championship aspirations as what they do now. We look at Team Penske year in and year out with that driver lineup as a team and an organization that can contend. They don't have anybody in there this season after having 2 in there last year in 2020, but they were right there until the very end, especially this past weekend with Brad Keselowski. But a very, it's going to be kind of a sad ending because the years of Brad Keselowski there, it's been fueled by rivalries and a lot of different emotions for myself, at least. And I'm sure for a lot of different fans who are fans of different drivers or for Brad Keselowski himself, he's definitely provided some of the most memorable moments of this kind of last decade or so in the sport. And hopefully he can have some good success with Roush Fenway, Keselowski Racing, or whatever they're going to call it next season. But yeah, your thoughts on Brad Keselowski here? I'm sure you feel very similarly that it's going to look weird with him not behind the wheel of the 2 car next year.
Yeah, it's gonna be very weird. It's easy to forget, but before Brad Keselowski got to Penske, for the most part, the handful of years prior to his arrival, they were kind of this like second tier team that were good. They would win races here and there, but they weren't real championship contenders. And when he arrived there, they started to turn the tide. They started to really turn things around and become that true championship contender. And we saw them finally break through with Brad Keselowski winning that championship. And so it's been a very wild ride over the past couple of years. The 1-year extension, would he sign long-term? Yeah. Would he be replaced? All these kind of things. So it's unfortunate to see him go, just given his importance to Penske kind of in general, when you look at the history of the 2 car and things like that. Being a good car, a championship contender with Rusty Wallace, but never being able to quite break through, having the down seasons in the mid 2000s, Kurt Busch kind of underperforming there. And then Keselowski steps into that car and goes out and wins a championship and stuff like that. So it's going to be very weird seeing him in a different car next season with a different team and stuff like that. It's going to be very weird seeing somebody other than Keselowski in the number 2. But it feels like it's kind of like this perfect time to split when you look at Keselowski and his aspirations into the future after he retires and things like that. A great opportunity with Roush Fenway, team that, of course, has had success in the past, is kind of faltered a little bit here and there, and still has the resources and ability to get back up at the front. They just kind of need a jolt. And Brad Keselowski obviously believes that he can be that person that can help them get back to championship aspirations. So not obviously to a different extent to what Penske was, but when you think about where Roush is and where Penske was in the mid 2000s, it's obviously different, but you think about it and there's some similarities there between them. So I'm very interested to see what happens into the future here for Keselowski into next season and beyond, how much they've put into this next generation of car, all these kind of things. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one this weekend to see how well the 2 car can do with no Fords, no Penske's in the championship race. Not going to be really part of the true storyline of the race, but one of the bigger departures definitely going into this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm having a difficult time trying to pinpoint something where a driver of his caliber and his resume is departing a team and not retiring. Switching teams is a big deal. And you can maybe look at Matt Kenseth going to Gibbs from Roush Fenway. That's one that sticks out to me in terms of having a championship and then switching to a different organization that they're definitely on the uprise. Then with Joe Gibbs Racing, it was a perfect time for Matt to jump ship from Roush.
Yeah, he timed that pretty well.
And same with Carl Edwards too. I mean, he may have missed it just a little bit. And then you think back to the owner driver role of Tony Stewart when he left Joe Gibbs and started his own team in 2009, and the big change that was in the sport. And then of course he eventually became a champion with his own team. And it's very difficult to try. I mean, Kevin Harvick probably as well with RCR going to Stewart-Haas Racing, like just a couple of those guys. That one's a little
bit different because RCR had been underperforming for a while there, but like still similar in terms of a big name team and driver and stuff like that. Because normally when we talk about these guys that have the championships and stuff like that in the way that we are with Keselowski right now, is they're retiring. And you think that the comparable this weekend, although he's not retiring or anything just yet, would be Ryan Newman, and probably being his final full-time season, unless something very unexpected happens for him going into next year. I still expect him to maybe run one or two kind of one-off races, maybe like the 500 with like an extra Roush entry or something like that. I'm not really too sure. But I expect him to still run a race or two. I would be a bit surprised if he just flat out retired from NASCAR this offseason, but he's kind of the one guy that you look at being like, okay, he's probably done, give him his due kind of thing, versus Keselowski, who is moving on to a new venture, a new opportunity, and kind of a career reset here, going into his prime years. When you think statistically age 39 being the prime of a driver's career, he's going right up on that season for himself. So stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely very different when you think about it from that perspective, like you mentioned.
Yeah, wanted to point that out. And then you mentioned Ryan Newman there, most likely his final full-time season. There's no real big retirement this season. We've had a whole flurry of them over the past 5-6 seasons, starting with Jeff Gordon and then Tony Stewart, then Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, all the kind of guys, Matt Kenseth, all these kind of guys that we grew up watching and cheering for and rooting for on Sundays. They're all gone for a large extent. And that's crazy to think, but no real big retirement news this time around this season. If it was going to happen, it would have been Kurt Busch, but of course he's locked up for next season with 2311. So no worries on that front. But yeah, Ryan Newman most likely done in full-time competition. Wouldn't be surprised, like you said, doing some one-off starts here and there. Could see him do some truck series stuff just because he's had success in that series before.
Yeah, I can see him doing like the dirt races and stuff.
Yeah. And, Ryan Preece as well. Most likely done in the Cup Series for at least the current.
He might be back sometime, but
just a good buy at least. He's not retiring or anything like that, but a good buy.
I wouldn't put him nearly in the same category or anything like that.
I just wanted to mention the people that are. It's going to look different for some of these guys, and same with Matt DiBenedetto as well. We don't know what he's doing for next season. Has had a rough week on social media.
A rough year.
Yeah. Tough look for Matt DiBenedetto this week, and we don't need to get into that. But
he's an interesting one, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, Chip Ganassi Racing's last race in NASCAR this weekend as well. So that's kind of going to be sad to see the one car of Chip Ganassi leaving. Of course, it's coming back next season for Ross Chastain. The 42 car, though, however, that is going to be gone, and that's the one that you really think about with Chip Ganassi Racing, the Juan Pablo Montoya kind of era there, and how well he did it at points in time. Going to be sad to see that 42 car not with either a Target red or on it or the Big Red sponsorship, McDonald's or anything that they've had over their time in the Cup Series. It's going to look a little weird not seeing that car out there in 2022. Todd Gordon retiring at the end of the season. Ryan Blaney's crew chief. So after Sunday, he is done. So very similar to Cole Pearn, of course, different kind of.
I wouldn't say they're the same at all.
Different in terms of having a Cup Series. Similar in having a Cup Series championship to their name, but for obviously different reasons. It's just going to be interesting to see how that kind of dynamic shifts over there. A big, massive overhaul for Team Penske next season, and lots of different little storylines that are going to be maybe not talked about enough over the weekend, but wanted to mention them before we get into our fantasy preview. So let's get into it, Kyle. We spent some time on that. Fantasy preview time for the final time in 2021. You whooped my butt this season. Congratulations for the 10,000th time I've said that, but it's well deserved. You bested me for 11 straight weeks at one point, which was 12 straight weeks. Sorry, at one point. Tough.
Oh
luck.
Man, I don't know how you made it through that stretch there. I'll be honest.
The summer months were really rough.
Yeah. From Kansas through to New Hampshire. Like that's
tough, real tough. And I mean, I got a lot of the race winner picks right during that stretch too, which is the worst thing. And I just could not figure it out. But it is what it is.
I had a good run. What can I say?
It is what it is. At the end of the day, it's all fun and games, but you get the pride on that front. Hopefully I can finish off F1. You're leading right now, but maybe I can make a comeback in the final 5 races.
I mean, what? It's like 3-point difference or something.
I know.
Like, it's crazy.
It's really tight.
What I will say is for the playoffs, at least I have 5 wins in the playoffs. You have 4. So if you win Phoenix, then you tie me at least on wins in the playoffs.
What a finish to the season for Whackers winners.
But let me see what the points is as well. just quickly here. So in the playoffs, I've got 1958 and you've got 1879. So I've still got you beat in the playoffs. I'm not sorry.
Talladega is where you really whooped me there. Like that was a big 40-point swing. And then,
I mean, you beat me pretty. Oh, okay. Texas and Kansas were basically the same margin, just flipped.
yeah.
Talladega, I did beat you pretty good by about like 35-ish points. Bristol's the big one though. I beat you by like 45 points there. So
Bristol was rough because I had a lot. You had the bonus.
There was a lot of
yeah.
stuff that happened for that one, but you know.
Kind of a worst case scenario. Those final like 40 laps with my entire fantasy lineup going to pit road.
Yep.
What it is. Let's get into our fantasy lineups, Kyle. Who kicks us off for this one?
You do.
I do.
We've got all 3 series, of course, being the championship week. You won at Martinsville, so fair play on that one. So you lead things off here.
We didn't get any of the bonus picks right, if I'm not mistaken.
Not a single one.
Which is crazy to think. Where we went into a weekend very confident with our lineup.
And we also like split it to a certain extent. Like it wasn't like carbon copy or anything.
No.
Like we split it and we still got all of them wrong. So
which doesn't bode well going into our predictions for this weekend, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Leading off my lineup this weekend, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Kyle Larson is in my lineup this weekend. We saved the usage for him, and I really, really wanted to use him here for the championship finale. You did the same as well, saving him at Kansas. So average finish over the last 7 races here is 7th for Kyle Larson, right on the number. 3 top 5s, 57 laps led. Had a very fast car in the spring race, but had multiple speeding penalties that kept on derailing his efforts on getting to the front. And then finally at that last run, I don't know if he just ran out of tire or what, he fell actually backwards on that final run to the checkers. I think he finished inside the top 10 though, at least. So I'm very curious to see what Kyle Larson does this weekend. If anything showed me, if there's one takeaway from Martinsville, it was how strong Hendrick Motorsports came to play at a 750 track. And we hadn't seen that really all season. It's been kind of the Gibbs and Penske show to an extent, with Logano being up at the front. And then you had your Hamlin, your Truex up there in the mix, but that wasn't really the case. It was very much a largely dominated Hendrick Motorsports day. Alex Bowman, of course, getting the victory at Martinsville in chaotic fashion, as that race usually does bring out the best in or the worst in a lot of people. We saw that from Denny Hamlin last weekend, but for Kyle Larson, goes in here with a lot of momentum. Has had the most time to prep his car. We'll talk about the championship for in a second, but for Kyle Larson, last usage, going to use him obviously this weekend.
Yep, I've got 2 guys in the championship 4 with a usage. One of them is Kyle Larson. He's in my lineup. The other one, Martin Truex Jr. Obviously, there's not much to say about Kyle Larson. He's been great on every single track all season long. Thought he would be better at Phoenix earlier in the season, like you mentioned, but had to come from the back 15 different times. Like it was stupid.
Which is a good thing for a lot of the champions or Hendrick Motorsports champions recently.
Doing it once is good. Doing it once, coming through the field once is fine. If you have to do it like 5 times, or not even exaggerating, I think it was like 3 times, right? Was it, or maybe even 4?
I think it was 2 or 3. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
like,
so
I think he started at the rear and then had 2 speeding
penalties. Yeah, so crazy stuff there. So Larson, Hendrick, we saw what they could do last year. We see what he can do all season long. There's not much to say about that one. For Martin Truex Jr., the winner, obviously, at Phoenix earlier this season, breaking through at a track that he hadn't won at. 750 playoff tracks has been their bread and butter all season long. Thought that they would be maybe a little bit better at Martinsville, had the chaos at the end, but still recovered to an insane 4th place finish somehow, barely squeaking into this championship 4, which is exactly the situation that they wanted to find themselves in, because they put a lot of emphasis on these tracks all season long. I've been saving him for the 750 tracks during these playoffs and the road course, of course, as well, and shaping up very well. So Martin Truex Jr. in my lineup here as well.
I'm TBD on MTJ.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I got a usage left, obviously, but it's just that the playoff guys, the final 4, don't get stage points. And I'm going with the same mentality I did last year in terms of picking the 2 guys I think that are going to finish top 2 for that championship 4. And for me, I think Denny Hamlin is the guy I'm looking at very heavily this weekend. So I'm going to pick him second here for myself. Average finish over the last 7 races here is a 7.14, just behind Larson's numbers. 1 victory, 5 top 5s, 216 laps led, has had the fastest medium lap time on the 750 horsepower package as well this season. Was very impressive at Martinsville, started at the rear, methodically worked his way up, didn't push the issue too much, finally got to the lead, and then got roughed up by Alex Bowman, and then did what he did after the checkered flag. So I have no reason to think that Denny Hamlin is not going to be at the front and challenging for this championship this weekend. We had a lot more hesitation last season, and when we get to the championship preview, we'll break it down a little bit more on that sense. But for Hamlin, I just think he's going to go in here with a chip on his shoulder. He's not won a championship yet. He's been kind of like scapegoated as this guy, or at least popular. Or I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's been really marketed towards the guy that's been the most successful driver that has not won a championship at the end of the day, besides Mark Martin. It's been those two that have really been in that kind of conversation. And maybe he breaks through this weekend. We'll see. But Denny Hamlin is absolutely in my lineup here, going for the championship without stage points. And I think he's got a pretty good shot here on Sunday. For my third selection, I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney. This is a track that he's done very, very well at recently. Has got an average finish over the last 7 races of 15.57, 2 top 5s, 133 laps led. You can't help but feel that they're going to bring a solid piece here this weekend, because they probably had the ambition that they were going to be in this championship for, and this is the car they would have used anyways. And it just didn't quite materialize at Martinsville, but they had every intention to do so over that round. It was those 3 tracks should have lined up relatively well for him, given history. Kansas, you can probably argue, but he's usually run better than he's finished there. But he's not in the championship 4. We both had him in there in our pre-playoff brackets, but not coming to fruition there. But Ryan Blaney had the best points out of anybody in this race last season, finished 6th, and which is just behind Jimmy Johnson, who ended up finishing 5th, which was a great end to his Cup Series career. But Blaney ended up having the most points here in this race last season, so he could absolutely do it again. And I'm looking for that 12 car to be pretty strong here at Phoenix.
Yep, I don't have the usage on Hamlin. I've already used him up, so I don't have him as an option here, which is why I've got the 2 guys that I have. I don't know about your strategy, because I've got to actually use the stage points and whatnot from my championship contenders and stuff, which I think is a better play. But I do have Ryan Blaney in my lineup here. I've liked him on these last handful of tracks going into the playoffs, and it's definitely shown that way. Maybe not as much as Blaney would have hoped for, with some issues here and there. But like you mentioned, the most points out of anybody in the Phoenix race season finale last year, because it's easy to forget that the championship guys don't get stage points because of this weird, stupid format. So it's definitely a weird situation in the championship race, where we know who the top 4 finishers are going to be with the championship 4. But looking outside of that, the stage points and stuff can make it so that other guys are in there. And in fact, 2 guys last year were in that top 5 in terms of being your best possible fantasy lineup, with Ryan Blaney with 43 points and Jimmy Johnson with 37 points. Don't forget, Jimmy Johnson's crew chief, now Kyle Larson's crew chief as well. So keep an eye on that with that setup and things like that. So there was 3 championship 4 guys that were in the top 5 in terms of usages. The other one, Denny Hamlin, was right there behind them in 7th, with Kyle Busch having 34 points in between them as well. So it's an interesting mix. Basically, you got to try and get a couple to 3 of the championship 4 guys if you have them, and then mixing in basically who you think will be best of the rest in there as well. And Ryan Blaney shapes up to be one of those guys again. Really strong results at Phoenix. Last year was basically the best of the non-championship 4 contenders, even though we did finish 1 spot behind Jimmy Johnson, had more of the stage points there. I don't love their 750 speed as much this season, ranking 10th in median lap time this season. But when I look at the track, when I look at them shaping up to be a championship team, all these kind of things, I do like the prospect of Blaney going into this weekend, because not only on top of all of that, they don't have anybody to focus their car on for the championship race either. So that there's no Penske, there's no Ford in the championship race. So it's kind of like a go ahead and use whatever you got kind of situation for Penske here. So I do like Blaney going into this weekend. So I've got him in my lineup as well. My number 4 guy, I mentioned him as being just outside of the potential best top 5. And actually with that, he would have been tied for the best 5th option with Joey Logano there, who had 34 points. And that's Kyle Busch, who had 34 points last time out. Obviously, you were banking on him making the championship race. Didn't quite work out that well. Basically did everything that he could have possibly done except for win the race. But I think season long, they've been slowly getting better on the 750 stuff. I still don't love them as much on the 750 stuff, but Kyle Busch is going to go out there. He's probably going to have a decent top 10 day. I don't know how hard or anything like that he's going to push or anything like that. But I've got a usage left and it's Kyle Busch, so I'm going to use him here.
That's kind of my line usually. But yeah, I've got Kyle Busch in my lineup as well. I really, really wanted him to make it, man. He gave me hope, and I didn't think I had much hope going into last weekend. And it came down to the end, outside line on the final restart. And I've watched it like 100 times, that damn restart already. And he could have, on coming to the white flag going into turn 3, he could have slid behind Bowman and then bumped him. I think that would have been the right play. He shouldn't have driven in the outside. Bowman's car was obviously much better, but you have to take advantage of that when you can. He may look back on that one and regret it, but I will have Kyle Busch in my lineup just because I did want to save him for this race, because I had him as my championship pick. And as biased as that may have been, but I did feel pretty confident in his abilities. And this is one of his better tracks as of late. He's got an average finish over the last 7 races of 6.43. And that's like up by a really poor finish in the spring where he had the shenanigans with Ross Chastain. A whole bunch of issues went wrong in the spring race for Kyle Busch here. So he probably had like a 2.3 or 4 point something average finish going into that race in the spring. Obviously had a poor result there. He's got 5 top 5s, 2 wins, and 491 laps led, the most amongst active drivers over the past 7 races. So the stats line up well. I don't think Kyle Busch will end up out front at any point in time over this race, but at the end of the day,
not in the championship for well.
Yeah. I'm just going to stick with my guy here. One last usage on him. I saved him for this race for that reason. And I'm going to take Kyle Busch here this weekend at Phoenix. For my 5th entry here, I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with William Byron.
You have a lot of really good usages left.
Yeah, I know. I got 1 usage left on the 24 car, I think.
Jesus.
How many usages do I have left on Byron? What do I got here? Why is it not loading? Yeah, 1. 1 usage left on the 24. So saved him for Phoenix.
No wonder you leave so many points on the table. You just save everybody so you have an option to use them in the last race.
I did have him at Talladega there, but he obviously had the poor finish, so I garaged him. So I would be out of William Byron usages, right? Yeah, all right. We get it. You've won the year. So over the last 7 races here,
why I've won it.
You know how it is with me and usages.
I know you go way too conservative.
I know. I got to change that next season. But average finish over the last 7 races, 12.71, 4 top 10s, 15 laps led. Byron's just been on fire as of late, and he's just been so consistent. Had the 1 rough round, and now he's didn't have a shot at the championship. So you can imagine that they're going to be fighting for something this weekend. I don't know how much performance they're going to get out of that car with 2 teammates in that championship for this weekend, but they could be a nice little setup guide, if you will. If something isn't working, they may go completely different than their teammates to see if something might work. You never know. At least they have the time for practice this weekend to try and figure out those little kinks and stuff that they usually don't. So I'm expecting good things from William Byron here this weekend. Ran well in the spring. So see what the 24 car can do to end up his career year so far.
Yeah, and it's been a great bounce back season for him, and hopefully they're able to finish things off well. What do you know if they would have made the championship race on points if they'd made it? Because I know going into Martinsville they had the most points accumulated or something like that.
Then they should have. They would have beaten Truex's numbers for sure in that round.
I think they would have. So
yeah.
I can't remember where he ended up finishing and stuff like that, but probably would have been in the championship race had it not been.
He finished 5th at Martinsville and finished 2nd.
Yeah, there you go.
Second and then whatever.
He absolutely would have made it through then in that case. So
yeah.
One thing I will say to you is I hope you do know that these usages don't transfer over to next year. If you got any remaining, just so you know. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I was hoping for a secret 11th usage.
Hey, of these guys.
That would be kind of fun. Not gonna lie. But my final 2 picks here, we've got 2 differences so far in Hamlin and William Byron, 2 guys that I don't have. available to me because I've used them all up. So I've got two guys that I really like in 750 speed. The first one is Joey Logano, somebody that if he had been able to make it through to the championship race, somebody who had a really down Martinsville when we expected him to be up there contending for the win.
Shocking, really, in that one.
In a must-win scenario.
That was their entire season. They built it on 750 speed and they didn't show up.
Yeah, top 5 750 speed all season long and just didn't show up for that race. Kind of not dissimilar to Kevin Harvick last year. Obviously, very different circumstances season long, but in terms of being a guy we expected to be at the front and completely missed the setup and stuff like that. But again, it's kind of similar to Ryan Blaney there. No Penske cars in the championship 4, nothing really to lose because of course this is the last race with this car, things like that. I expect Penske to be probably best of the rest this weekend, which is why I've got Blaney in there looking for the stage points in addition to a good finish. Joey Logano, very similar boat for myself, and a guy who's had some very strong results in the past at Phoenix as well. And my number 6 entry, another championship 4 miss for him in a row, but Kevin Harvick's had really strong 750 speed all season long, kind of underrated in that regard. Phoenix has been a great track for him in the past, and so when I look at that, having I think 6th best 750 speed so far this season, or sorry, 8th, so slipped a little bit after Martinsville, but I still really like him at Phoenix. I like them finishing off the season like that, so I think he's another guy that I would expect season long. They've been very consistent in kind of that 7th to 10th range at the very least, which is exactly the range that I'm looking for them to finish in this time around, getting a couple of stage points, getting a solid finish. And so I've got Harvick to round out my lineup here.
Interesting. That was the guy I was looking at for this final spot. It's the debate between Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. for myself for this final spot. Damn. When I looked at the numbers last season, usually the top, the practice there was no qualifying for this race last year. Am I mistaken on that?
No,
I don't think
right.
there was. Yeah. So that's why a lot of the playoff guys, got the top 4 spots in the stages and everything like that. So there wasn't as much of a secondary group there that were non-playoff guys that earned a lot of high-end stage points to really try and switch it up.
Check. So 2019 then would be the last championship race with qualifying, correct?
Yeah.
So that was at Homestead. So the top 5 fantasy usages there, just for context, Kyle Busch obviously winning with 40 points, but then the 4 after that, all non-championship 4 guys. Eric Jones with 37 points, Joey Logano 36, Clint Boyer 36, and Ryan Blaney 36. The other 2 championship 4 guys, you look at Martin Truex Jr. there at 35, just missing that top 5 of the best fantasy usages, and then Kevin Harvick behind him with 33 points. So the last time we did have qualifying, you are right in that sense that there were some other guys mixing it in there, and 4 of the top 5 fantasy usages being non-playoff guys.
I'm going to stick with the same formula that I did last year. Then I'm going to put in Kevin Harvick over Martin Truex Jr. I just feel confident about the 5 and the 11 as my 2 championship favorites going into this weekend. Why would you not feel comfortable with those 2 going into Phoenix, given their speed so far this season and how they've been the clear class of the field? There's such a big gap in terms of performance and consistency for those 2 cars over everybody else. So at this point, I kind of wish it was just the championship 2 and these 2 can just fight it out for this weekend because it is what it is. We'll talk about it in a second, but yeah.
Oh,
Kevin Harvick wraps up my lineup, and that does it for the actual picks for fantasy. We have bonus picks, of course.
Just to jump in here, that means that it is Martin Truex Jr. and Joey Logano for me versus Denny Hamlin and William Byron for you.
That's not bad.
Which is a pretty fun head-to-head, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's interesting. All righty. Honorable mentions for this weekend. You have Martin Truex Jr. in there. I do not, but of course he makes an appearance on this list. Denny Hamlin for yourself, of course. He's not on your availability. He's on mine. William Byron, he's not on yours. He's on mine. I do have a Joey Logano usage left, but I just didn't want to use him here this weekend, given their disappointing performance at Martinsville last weekend. A track that I would rate more highly for him, maybe or equal to at least to Phoenix is what it is. And I don't know if I can really give the 22 car the edge here on that front, but still a good pick. Brad Keselowski as well. Always runs pretty consistently here. Had a good car in the spring, was in the mix in the top 5 for the majority of that race. And then Christopher Bell also had a very good spring race here in March. So you can maybe imagine the 20 car giving a bit of a setup similarly to William Byron, maybe this weekend, and Kyle Busch,
Yeah, no, if I'd used some other usages previous to that, like when I was looking at kind of the whole playoff forecast, when I had to like pick 6 guys through and see and kind of whittle down and stuff like that, I originally had Bell as one of my kind of secondary options for Phoenix here. So I do like him to potentially be a top 10 guy here.
Yeah, and then that'll do it for the honorable mentions. There's not really many other. Oh, Chase Elliott as well. Sorry.
Wow. Yeah. I guess we know who's going to win the championship now.
I skipped him. Shoot, that's not going to look good. But stay away from for this weekend. I'm going to give a nod. I did it last year. I said Jimmy Johnson to stay away from because I wanted him to get a good finish, of course, with the Jinx. I'm going to do the same thing for Ryan Newman here this weekend. Maybe he ends his full-time Cup Series career on a high note.
He doesn't wreck 3 times this weekend?
Yeah, maybe that would be nice. And then, but honestly, there is a legit stay away from this weekend. The guy who won last weekend at Martinsville, Alex Bowman.
Home track hasn't been good to him.
No, it has not.
He had his breakout race, and I guess he used up all his luck.
Definitely. Apparently he's a hack, according to Denny Hamlin, though. So I mean, oh Jesus. But yeah,
hey, for what it's worth, that was a really good post race. That was really good.
I don't know. I just
you didn't like it.
Denny Hamlin drives me nuts. But I'll get into that.
He used
maybe
to drive me nuts, but I've started to turn on him a little bit. Like I thought that was perfect post race.
Yeah, but if Kyle Busch did something like that, you'd hate him for it. You know what I mean?
I'd still say it was a good post race. I just wouldn't enjoy it. I'd be like, God, I hate this guy, but that was a good post race.
We won't even get into Kyle Busch's post race stuff.
No,
of course,
I don't want to.
No, but... he's going through sensitivity training over the off season for his remarks.
Should.
Yep, absolutely. I can't defend that. It was ridiculous what he said there. Nobody should say that. So, but yeah, that'll do it for the honorable mentions and stay away from. It's a very short, condensed list this weekend. It's your
not
championship
a lot of
4
options,
guy.
if we're being honest. Yeah.
No, it's a limited list. So, screw it. I'll throw in Eric Almirola as an honorable mention because he's got good, decent numbers here, and 750 speed's been pretty good for them lately. So
that's fair.
I'll throw him in there. I'll make a note of it so that I don't look like a complete idiot. So I can look back at it. But let's get to the bonus picks. We will save the race winner picks for our championship 4 predictions. But last bonus picks of the season, Kyle.
You start things off here. You get top Chevy pick.
Yeah, and this is pretty straightforward for me. I'm not
really okay.
Yeah,
2 championship guys there.
Yep, Kyle Larson. I'm going with him. I did not quite see the speed from the 9 car in the spring here to suggest that they will be the front runner, despite him being the defending race winner of this race. I just think a lot of things lined up well for Chase Elliott that they're not going to line up as well for him this time around. So I'm going to go with Kyle Larson as the top Chevrolet.
And I am as well. Just playing the odds game here. I think Kyle Larson is a much better contender to go out and win this race when I just look at his performance season long, when I look at some of the analytics and having better 750 speed. And of course, Chase Elliott has not won on an oval this season. It's been road courses only for him this season, which is a far cry from what it was last year, having the top 750 speed, all this kind of stuff. So I am as well going with Kyle Larson as the top Chevrolet. For top Ford, though, no championship guys to pick from. So a bit more of an open field here. I'll take the swing on Ryan Blaney. He's been kind of the best of the rest guy a couple of years now in a row. When you look back to Homestead being up in that mix, looking last year, not quite being there as the best of the rest guy, but being right behind Jimmy Johnson there, having the most points, stuff like that. He's had a tough couple of weeks here in a row. I think they'll be looking for some redemption to round out their season for a very underrated breakout season in terms of the consistent performances for Ryan Blaney being up there and season long points, being a top 5 guy, which is something that we've been waiting for a little while here from Ryan Blaney. He's been season long the most consistent and best Penske guy, which when you look at Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, that's a very strong feat for Ryan Blaney. So I'll say he finishes out the strong year as the top Ford.
I initially had him written down, but let's go a little bit fun for the final weekend.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski. I'm going to say that he goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say that he ends his Penske career on a high note at Phoenix, a track that he's done relatively well. I feel like guys that are in kind of their final race tend to do decent, and I think they're going to throw everything that they can at Keselowski's car for this weekend, give him one last send off here. And honestly, I'm not obviously the biggest Brad Keselowski fan, but I appreciate what he's done for in terms of entertainment. And I think he's definitely gotten a lot better over the past
And hey,
season.
he's still sticking around, so we might
No,
get some more highlights into next season as well.
Definitely. And of course, he's taken over the 6 car that is traditionally the toughest one to pass. So, there's a lot of different things.
I don't think that'll be
with
changing too much.
Probably not. But yeah, I'll go with Keselowski here for top 4 this weekend. Top Toyota finisher.
Tough one here.
Yes. It's the battle of Hendrick versus Gibbs this weekend. I'm going to give the edge to Denny Hamlin. Okay. I'm going to stick with my guns on my lineup here my lineup decisions. I'm going to double down with that in the bonus picks. I just think the 750 speed is too hard to deny. The 11 car here this weekend was especially impressive at Martinsville, was very good at Richmond, was very good at Darlington, obviously winning that race. There's a lot of different things that culminate to the 750 speed in the latter half of the season, going the way of the 11 car more so than the 19 car early on in the season when they were the more dominant car on those tracks. Hamlin has arguably come back and done better at those tracks since then. So I think the momentum is switched to the 11 car on those tracks from the early season success to the 19. And that's why I give Hamlin the edge here at Phoenix this weekend.
Yep. I think it's very, very close as well between Hamlin and Truex. Just looking to Truex winning the race earlier this year, Hamlin season long being the best on the 750 tracks. I'm going to go Hamlin here and match you on that just because you've got him in your lineup. So giving you the extra 5 points and stuff like that, I don't love too much. And I think that he's got slightly better odds just having the best 750 speed season long, having kind of that step up as well in the playoffs. So I like Denny Hamlin here.
All righty. Winning manufacturer.
Tough here.
Kind of gives a little bit away, if you will.
Maybe because there is the split option when you look at 2 teams, 2 manufacturers here in the championship race.
It's a 50% chance, right?
It kind of does feel like a 50-50 here. So for manufacturer, I will go with Toyota to start things off.
Ooh. What? I'm stunned. I cannot
believe
it. Okay. I did not expect it. You've been dead on the Hendrick, bonus picks for the majority of the season. I would love to know how many times you picked the Chevy Hendrick combo. That is really,
I think I might have done it for all 12 weeks. I beat you in a row.
Yeah, I feel like you did.
That's part of the reason why I got it. But
I kept on thinking that this has got to end at some point. It never did.
Hey, I just rode the wave and it worked. But
yeah, who would have thought Kyle Larson summer stretch was something impressive?
You've got the back-to-back here. You can dictate a lot here.
I know. I could indeed. I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to go Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going all in. Yeah, I just, there's a lot of different reasons for it. And I think the main one for me is just watching the races the entire season and watching the handling characteristics of the cars. I give the edge on this kind of track to Hendrick. I think the front end turned of those cars to get it turned in the center of the corner is where Larson's bread and butter has really been this season. They have had the turning ability like nobody else this season to get the apex run off the corner and just really try and conserve those tires. I feel like he's done an excellent job of that this season. And I think that this track really it emphasizes that characteristic a lot. And I'm going to give the edge to Hendrick Motorsports' kind of build of their cars. I think it's a better philosophy in terms of how they have their stuff underneath the chassis and everything like that. I think it's just going to have the edge over Joe Gibbs Racing here this weekend, despite it being more of a Joe Gibbs Racing historical track. I'm going to give the edge to Hendrick Motorsports here this weekend and say they go back to back with the winning organization.
Originally, I was going to split it, but let's have some fun. JGR.
Okay. Shit.
Let's have some fun. Why not?
I give that great spiel, and I'm gonna look like an idiot at the end of it. Damn it.
Well, okay. So what I'll say is I will explain it a little bit. For me, just playing the numbers game. Denny Hamlin first in 750 median lap time. Martin Truex Jr. third in 750 median lap time. Kyle Larson is second. Chase Elliott is fifth. So just playing the numbers game. That's first and third versus second and fifth. Obviously, anything can happen in that one race there, but seeing what happened at Phoenix earlier this year, going into this race, seeing what they've done in the playoffs, all these kind of things, I like the duo of Truex and Hamlin.
Hey, it's not a bad bet. So
I'm also betting against Kyle goddamn Larson. So
but I will say a lot of the times the championship favorite doesn't end up winning it.
I guess we'll see what our championship picks are, and we'll know who won't win it. So
yeah, exactly. Let's get into the championship preview. We'll save the race winner picks for when we get to the actual predictions. But for the championship for the Cup Series, you're just going to exclusively look at them. We'll start off with Kyle Larson. His stats this season are unbelievable. 35 starts, 9 victories, 19 top fives, 25 top tens, 2,474 laps led. He could break the all-time Hendrick Motorsports record for most laps led in a single season. He only needs 137 more to break the record with Jeff Gordon. There's a lot of opportunity for him to do that this weekend if he starts out front and gets a good qualifying effort in.
Which Kyle Larson usually does. So.
Yes, 17 stage wins, 7 out of the 9 playoff races so far have been inside the top 10 for him for finishes. You just think to this most recent weekend at Martinsville and Talladega is the only exceptions to that. I'll give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
He didn't even have a chance at Talladega.
No. And he's just been very consistent with the 750 speed. If there was going to be the biggest weakness for this 5 car, you could maybe lean to this being it, given their season and looking at the competition. 550 speed, they're unmatched. Road courses, they're arguably the best, if not the best, over Chase Elliott this season. I don't know if anybody really saw that coming from what we've seen in the previous 2 seasons on the road courses. Super speedways are an anomaly. We don't really look at those in terms of performance on that front, but they've had the most prep time out of any team as well. They've known for a couple of weeks here that they're going to be in there. Not to say that they didn't know beforehand, but they had a pretty good shot anyways. They have had a lot of time to put a lot of effort into this car going into Phoenix this weekend. And you can imagine that will prove dividends, at least in the early portion of the weekend. Unload well, practice well, hopefully, or in terms of the 5 teams case, unhopefully, or they don't hope the bunch, the rest of the pack catches up to them via practice and everything like that. So qualifying will be extra important for all these teams this weekend. But saying that, the last 2 champions that have come from the Hendrick Motorsports stable have started the race at the tail of the field. So I'm a big fan of that, honestly. I think you get to know what your car does through traffic. You learn a lot more. Of course, it ups the risk, but usually in these championship races, the guys at the back and everybody knows what you're racing for as a championship 4 contender, so they don't really try and push it too hard in terms of the on-track battles. And the good thing about Kyle Larson, he has not upset or pissed people off this entire season. He's raced very clean, very methodical, and he doesn't have anything that could bite him in the butt here going into this race that, some of these other guys potentially could have some more difficulty around some guys than not. So I think all those advantages lean to Kyle Larson having a very good weekend and a very good shot at going for his first Cup Series title.
Yeah, Kyle Larson is pretty good at the whole racing thing. Pretty crazy, huh?
I could have just said that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's been a remarkable season. He's the championship favorite going in for a reason. And it would be a little bit disappointing if he didn't get to finish off the season, either with the championship, with the laps record, all these kind of things. It's been a season that all of us kind of thought maybe would happen next year when Kyle Larson gets a feel for Hendrick Motorsports, all these kind of things. But to be able to go out, adjust to a new team, to a package and track combination that he hasn't really got to do as well, when you think about all the missed time from the season previous, all these kind of things with no practice, no qualifying, to still go out and do it. It's been a stupidly good season from Kyle Larson. And I hope that he can go out and finish off with the championship. It would be just the perfect cap on the season for what has been one of the best seasons in recent memory.
Yeah. And the fact that he could hit double-digit wins this weekend is pretty crazy to think about. And I don't think anybody saw this level of performance. I didn't even have him winning maybe 4 races coming into this season. I didn't think that the 5 car would be this strong, given how poorly or inconsistent the 48 car was at the end of Jimmy Johnson's tenure. Didn't quite have the week in and week out speed that this 5 car has shown every single weekend. When they're not in the top 5, the car is something's happened to Kyle Larson to take him out of that. It's been very rare that he has not been inside the top 3, top 2, or even leading a race this season. So I really hope he's got a really good shot this weekend and goes out there. And I honestly hope he wins this weekend. Out of all the guys that are in the championship four, I don't have any bias towards any of them, but if I'm going to lean some way, I'm going to absolutely lean in the way of Kyle Larson given the season. And I respect what he's done on the track so far this season for after everything that's happened in 2020 for him that derailed what could have been a career-ending incident for him. He's done a very good job so far this season to put that behind him and take the proper steps to make up for his mistake last season. So next up, Denny Hamlin. This is the guy that Kyle Larson's been dueling with the entire season, regular season points championship. It came down to the end. And Hamlin's just been kind of right there in terms of consistency, not the race victories, only 2 wins and 35 starts for the 11, but 18 top fives, only 1 less than Larson, 20, I believe it's 24 top 10s. Let me just make sure on that. Yeah, 24 top 10s. I made a mistake here, but 24 top 10s, 1 less than Larson as well. So you just think 1 less race that Hamlin performed than Kyle Larson this season. The laps led total, though, 1,502 laps led for the 11 car, much, much better than what it was when he came into last season as what the media claimed as the championship favorite, given the race wins total. He had that last season, not the laps led total in terms of being out front, and he had been the worst on the 750 package all season in 2020. They've totally flipped the script this season and have put an extra emphasis on the 750 package where they have been the fastest of any team so far this year. And that's a big step in the right direction. 10 stage wins as well. So 7 off of Kyle Larson. That's not too bad, given how many more laps led that Larson has than Hamlin so far. So you have to think that these two come into the championship the ultimate favorites, given their speed on 750 and their just overall consistency over the season, comparing against their 2 other counterparts here, teammates and rivals as well. So your thoughts, Kyle? Denny Hamlin looking for that first Cup Series championship this weekend. That's eluded him for his entire career up to this point. There's a lot of different things that could go his way or right, and we've seen that to be the case in both the times that he's really been in that championship race, in 2019 specifically with the tape, and 2010 where he came into that race as the championship leader and then had the spin early on and he never really recovered. So what are you thinking for Denny Hamlin coming into Phoenix?
Yeah, like you mentioned, last year he kind of went in as the championship favorite, but that was disingenuous when you looked at the 750 results season long. He was more of a long shot than people really kind of looked at when you look more at the numbers. The win number was gaudy, it was eye-catching, but it was 550 tracks and stuff like that. And that wasn't, of course, the package that is at Phoenix this year. Like you mentioned, flip the script. They put all the emphasis on the 750, or I won't say all the emphasis, but they put the emphasis on 750 tracks and being good there. They've been consistently season long the fastest at this track type. And by a decent margin when you look at the consistency of it. The consistent performance doesn't matter going into this weekend. Is who's going to be the fastest. And I believe they've shown over these playoffs that they can be the fastest going into this weekend. So I think it's kind of a coin flip between the top 2 there, between Larson and Hamlin, in terms of who's going to be the favorite going into this weekend. They're 1-2 in median lap time in 750 tracks. Both of them have pretty solid results in the past at Phoenix. Hamlin more so, Larson more consistent results. But yeah, I think it's going to be a head-to-head battle between these two this weekend. Hopefully, at least, with Elliot and Truex being more of like the longer shot guys that can still get up there and contend. When you look at some of the peripherals, with Truex being top 5 in terms of 750 speed, actually both of them being top 5, but Truex specifically being top 3 there, having won earlier this season. I think he can mix it up there. Elliott more of a long shot, but when you look season long, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the analytics, when you look at everything, the top 2 this weekend are Hamlin versus Larson.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to Chase Elliott, the defending Cup Series champion, trying to go back to back. The only driver to do so if he's able to pull it off this weekend in this championship format. It's never been done. It would be a big accomplishment and a big statement if Chase Elliott can go out there and do it this weekend. Over 35 starts this season, 2 victories, 14 top 5s, 20 top 10s, 858 laps led, 6 stage victories. And then is honestly, I would say, the biggest wild card of the championship for this weekend. Just because we don't really know what the 9 cars got. I think, Truex is going to perform given the 750 speed, but Chase Elliott's been kind of this guy rumbling around, kind of being Mr. Consistent in some areas. Has not won on an oval, like you mentioned earlier, this season. It's been 2 road course victories, nothing, and a rain-shortened victory at COTA was one of them. It's just been it's been a weird year for Chase Elliott, and I look at him as being probably the lesser of the 4 coming into this weekend. I think a lot of people probably feel that way, given their 750 speed being the slowest, even though he's top 5 in the series, but the slowest given season long against his competitors. And he hasn't had that race winning ability so far in 2021. So he's an interesting one. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, Kyle, this weekend, but it would be a pretty big victory if he's able to pull this off and steal it from the rest of his competition here.
Yeah, I think wild card is the best way to put it, because the defending winner of this race, before the defending champion, we saw him have the best car by like 0.3 last year, go through the field with basically ease, looking like it was 2 different classes of cars racing, like it was an IMSA race or something like that. And yeah, so they could easily go out and have that same kind of car again come through and win this race. When I look season long, it's been a very different story in terms of their season. Last year, they were the top car on 750 speed. They had won Martinsville coming in with that momentum, things like that. Not the case this season around. And so I think that they'll obviously be top 4, because the championship 4 is always the top 4. But I think that they will be kind of the lesser of them unless they're able to pull off a little bit extra, which they haven't had all season long.
No, I agree with that. Last but not least, Truex Jr., the guy that squeaked his way in off to at Martinsville, had obviously some tense moments there at the end of that one to make it here. But he's this is the 4 guys that have led the most laps so far this season. Laps led is an interesting total. We've talked about this off camera, but just in terms of the different track types and what a lap led means at certain tracks, short tracks obviously going to amplify that total rather than a road course or something like that. But saying that, Truex Jr., 35 starts this season, 4 victories, 12 top 5s, 19 top 10s, 793 laps led, 5 stage victories, has been the least consistent of the championship 4 all season. Has been kind of a boom or bust kind of pick in most weekends. 1.5 miles have been their weakness for sure so far in 2021. It's not even been a consideration for a lot of these tracks for him, which is crazy to think, because he was the 1.5 mile master for a couple of seasons there, where he was a shoe-in to be inside that top 3 basically in leading laps, especially.
Guess where the championship race is now? Not on 1.5 miles. And would you look at that? They shift their focus from the 1.5 miles to the 750.
Yes, they do. And that's looking very well for Truex Jr. here this weekend. Of course, the spring winner here. And the past 2 champions who have won, or the past 3 champions who have won 5 races en route to their championship. That's Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott. What's Truex going to do if he wins this weekend? Have his 5th win. So I don't know if there's a pattern there or not, but it's always been kind of a sweet spot there with 5 victories on the season and performing at the right time. We saw that last season. Chase Elliott came on strong. Kyle Busch had his wins early. Joey Logano came on strong late. It's just been kind of one of those weird seasons where I don't know if Logano actually had 5 wins. I could be wrong on that, but nonetheless,
I don't think he did, but
no, I don't think so. The last 2 at least have been 5 victories in the season. So maybe that pattern continues here for Truex Jr. He could go out there and do what he did in the spring, lead a couple of laps. He's a very much a comer on late in the going in a lot of these races. He doesn't really lead a lot early on, but they find the setup late, and he's able to do the best with that car that he can. There's a lot of anticipation for what Truex Jr. can do this weekend. Of course, having a disappointing 2020, they've come back with vengeance this season in terms of getting those race victories. Hasn't won since Richmond in the playoff race, and then before that, it was a long dry spell since Darlington in the kind of that spring before summer stretch there. So, your thoughts, Kyle? The last one here, Truex Jr. going into Phoenix. What are you thinking here for the 19?
Yeah, so the first 3 are 1, 2, and 3 in terms of season-long points. Kyle Larson leading things there. Denny Hamlin a clear second, and then Chase Elliott a distant third, and kind of a lot of guys in kind of that conversation for third there. Truex Jr. is the exception there. He's down in 7th in terms of season-long points. He could easily get up there and be like a top 5 or even top 4 guy because of how close it is in terms of points. But I think that shows the difference versus Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, who have been good at every track so far this season. Chase Elliott, similar in terms of being good everywhere, but just kind of that slight step below being like a solid like top 6, top 7 guy versus Larson and Hamlin, who are clear cut top 5 guys week in, week out.
Yeah.
And then Martin Truex Jr., very much being a specialized guy. 750 tracks has been the name of their game. Road courses have been up and down for them this season as well. They've had some highlights here and there on mile and a halves, but have kind of faded as the season goes along, came back a little bit in the playoffs here. So they're the team that kind of looks like the most specialized one, the one that has the most chips in this championship kind of format, not caring about how well they do season long, but being good at the specific track type. And that's exactly what we've seen from them early season, getting those wins at Martinsville, Phoenix, those kind of tracks, winning at Richmond, all these kind of things. The track types that they want to be good at are 750, shorter ovals, flatter track types, these kind of things, all shaping up for Phoenix. So having that first career win at Phoenix earlier this season really shapes up well for them going into this race. It's going to be a very different kind of weather situation in terms of the heat and things like that. Very different situation in terms of the setup. But having that success earlier this season, having success season long is going to shape up very well for this team going into this race, and are easily right up there with those other guys, despite being like a couple hundred points back of them season long. Doesn't matter about season long stuff. It matters about going into this race, and all of them shape up pretty well when you look at some of the underlying numbers.
Definitely. It's going to be an interesting championship 4 battle.
Yep.
Let's get into the predictions, Kyle. We'll start off with the Truck Series on Friday night. It's an interesting mix of guys. Zane Smith wins his way in last weekend at Martinsville after a disappointing season for sure for that team, but they've won their way in. Sheldon Creed, his teammate, being ousted because of that victory. Would have been nice to see Sheldon Creed and Jon Hunter Nemechek go head-to-head for the championship. Nemechek's been the best by far season long, but it would have been nice given Creed's late surge in the playoffs and how well he ran in that opening round to at least have a shot at going against the Ford truck here this weekend. Of course, the other two being Ben Rhodes and Matt Crafton, Thor Sport teammates. So it's a battle of Toyotas with 3 to Chevrolet's 1 in Zane Smith. So do you want to lead us off here, Kyle?
Sure.
What are you thinking in terms of the order here? We got to go order, I think, in terms of how we think it's going to go 4th to 1st. What are we thinking for the 4th place guy in the Truck Series Championship?
Yeah, so I think I would probably say there's 3 that I would really look at as being like your true like race win contenders, looking at Nemechek, Rhodes, and Zane Smith for those. For Matt Crafton, I just don't really see a scenario where somebody is able to go out and win the race or something like that isn't in the championship 4, and Crafton is able to get like a really solid like 2nd or 3rd place and win the championship or something like that. They've been consistent season long, but they haven't really shown the ability to win a race this season versus some of the other guys. Zane Smith, of course, getting the win in that clutch situation, but also being good at Phoenix in the past as well. When you look at his Xfinity start and last season as well at Phoenix, when you look at Jon Hunter Nemechek, speaks for itself, and Ben Rhodes as well. Early season success kind of falling off as the season has gone along, but still actually number 2 in terms of season long points for the Truck Series. So I would look at those 3 as being like your true contenders, and I would look at Crafton as being kind of your long shot guy there in 4th.
Yeah, same for me. Agree with everything you said there. They just haven't had a front running truck the entire year. It's eerily similar to when he won the championship with no victories. He could do it again this weekend if he doesn't win the race and just finishes ahead of his competition. But I'm going to go on the side that he doesn't do that this weekend and finishes the worst of the championship 4. Next up, I'm going to put Zane Smith in here in 3rd. I just don't know if they quite have had the speed consistently compared to Jon Hunter Nemechek and Ben Rhodes. And Rhodes ran really well in this race last season, and KBM has just been really, really good here in the past as well. So I'm going to give the edge to those 2 in terms of finishing ahead of Zane Smith for this championship 4, but a valiant effort nonetheless for the 21 truck to make it to Phoenix for a shot at the championship.
You know, a great performance to go out and win the race under the chaotic circumstances and stuff like that. But the chaos that ensued around him wasn't really his fault. He was the one who got the clean bump and run, got to the inside and things like that. His move was the cleanest and fairest of them all when you look at the chaos and everything like that happened in that race.
Yeah.
I actually do like the GMS speed and Zane Smith specifically at this track, so I've got him second here with Ben Rhodes third. I just think having the two trucks there for ThorSport versus the other two organizations, having the sole focus of Zane Smith and Jon Hunter Nemechek there, I think that'll benefit those two. Having the sole focus, I think Ben Rhodes has been solid this season, but I just think the duo of Zane Smith and Jon Hunter Nemechek with the top level teams, having the sole focus and being two strong tracks for those two as well, I think will put them over the ThorSport duo.
All righty. I've got Ben Rhodes and Jon Hunter Nemechek left. I'm going to stick. This is the problem. We've gone 0 for 6 in our predictions over the past two seasons. So are we trying to jinx somebody here this weekend, or are we actually going legitimate? I'm trying to go legitimate, and hopefully I can get a championship pick right. And I want the guy that deserves it the most so far in the Truck Series this season. I'm going to say Jon Hunter Nemechek brings it home for Kyle Busch Motorsports in a kind of redemption arc, going back to the Truck Series to try and win races and try and win a championship. I say he finishes it off. It has been a rough playoffs for him in terms of consistency and mechanical failures and incidents and everything. It hasn't been kind to him over this last stretch, over the past couple of months, but I say that he perseveres through that, and that early season performance that we saw from the Ford truck emerges, and he goes out there and wins the Truck Series championship over Ben Rhodes.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close race between Zane Smith and Jon Hunter Nemechek. Zane Smith has been strong at Phoenix in the past, like I mentioned, having some good runs there in Xfinity when he did the part-time duty for JRM a couple of years back. And then of course last year as well, getting a really solid run there.
Yeah.
But I think for myself, I have to go with Jon Hunter Nemechek. If he doesn't win the championship, it'll leave a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. He's had, like you did mention, he's had an up and down playoffs. He had a really big margin going into the playoffs in terms of season long points. That's been chopped down a little bit by the likes of Ben Rhodes and Austin Hill and stuff like that. But I think season long, Jon Hunter Nemechek is the most deserving. I would be very surprised if they don't go out and are the truck to beat. So for Jon Hunter Nemechek, this weekend is all what it's been for all season long. It's been going out and winning that championship. The wins are nice, but it's about getting that hardware at the end of the season that really, really matters for his resume. And I think he goes out and gets it done this weekend.
All righty. Jon Hunter Nemechek. Does he win the race for you as well?
Yes.
Or do we have, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he does as well for me. All righty. Xfinity Series on Saturday night. We've got interesting battle in this one. We have the Owners Championship in this one that we have to take into consideration, but also mainly
is the Owners different for trucks as well? I think it is.
The owner standings for the trucks is the 21, the 99, the 38, and the 4. So
Okay.
Todd Gilliland is in there fighting for something here this weekend. I say that he could get up into that mix here. Definitely.
Yeah, I can see him getting up to like third or something, but he's going to be hard pressed to go up for that championship.
Yeah, but still a nice little underlying story there that they will not talk about. So Xfinity Series on Saturday. It's been the two-headed horse, very similarly to the Cup Series with Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. Xfinity, it's been Austin Cindric and AJ Allmendinger. Noah Gregson won his way in, similarly to Zane Smith going at Martinsville last week, and a big victory for him. Starting on the outside line, taking the lead from Daniel Hamrick, a very strong move in clean driving by Noah Gregson when he needed it most. A really breakthrough moment here. Maybe he carries that momentum into next season. But for myself, I have Noah Gregson finishing 4th of the championship for this weekend at Phoenix. I just don't know if this is the best track for him. Driving style wise, if this is Justin Allgaier, we're looking at a different story, but with him taking that spot, I don't know if they'll quite have enough to compete against the other three that are going to be a little bit more favorable, at least in my opinion, going into Phoenix. So I think Gregson falls short of a championship in his first championship 4 appearance in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's the longest shot of them all. When you look at season long speed, they've been a little bit further back. They've been really strong in the playoffs though, so that momentum is going to really help them. Yep. But when I look at Colleague and specifically Allmendinger, when I look at Penske, when I look at JGR, the 3 teams that they're going up against, I think Junior Motorsports and that 9 team are kind of the 4th team of that bunch. So I can easily see Gregson going up and contending a little bit further up. And I think that it will be a bit of a close championship battle, at least for 2nd through 4th at the very least. But yeah, I do have Gregson as kind of the lesser of that bunch.
Alrighty. Number 3, what are you thinking?
Number 3, I'm going to go a little bit bold with this one, and I'll say AJ Allmendinger. I just think when I look at Phoenix, I don't love that track for him. It doesn't play into his strengths of braking or anything like that. And colleague strength as a team has been mile and a halves. And so when I look at the fact that it's not a mile and a half, which is where Allmendinger's been able to get his oval victories with colleague, it's not a short oval like a Martinsville or something like that, where you can really lean on his braking ability. And obviously it's not a road course or anything like that, which is where his best strengths are. I think that in terms of the championship race being where it is, it's the worst possible scenario for colleague and for AJ Allmendinger. And so I think they're going to need a bit of a lucky break to get up there and really contend for the championship, unless Allmendinger really surprises. So I'm actually going to put him 3rd here.
Not bold for me at all, because that's exactly where I have him too. I have the same kind of inkling or feeling going into this weekend for Allmendinger. Ran 5th in the spring race that had a lot of incidents, and that's, behind some of the guys that you wouldn't traditionally think.
Of those, to be fair.
Yeah, that's fair. But nonetheless, for the amount of race victories that he's got this season with 5, he doesn't really have the laps led total to go along with that, only 422. And when you look at Austin,
he's been a closer.
The same amount of wins. He's got over 1,000. So it's double the amount of laps led as somebody like Allmendinger. Well, you think of that Bristol win where he came out of nowhere and won that one from Citrix, basically his grasp there at the checkered flag. I don't know. I think he's had a tremendous season, and I would love to see AJ Allmendinger win the championship. But like you said, I think this is the worst case scenario. It reminds me of Chase Briscoe a little bit last season, where he came into Phoenix, not a strong track for either of them. And it proved to be the case. Briscoe wrecked out. He tried everything he could, was the best car by far last season, didn't come to fruition, and he was nowhere near the championship battle really all day long. They just missed the setup, and it's not really his greatest track. I think we're going to see a little bit of a similar storyline here on Saturday with AJ Allmendinger, so I have him 3rd as well. Champion prediction for the Xfinity Series. Daniel Hamrick and Austin Cindric coming down to it. And I think Austin Cindric goes back-to-back here this weekend. He won the race in the spring. He won this race last season. He's trying to go back-to-back for championships. We've seen that kind of been a recipe of success. Tyler Reddick did it just a couple of seasons ago. William Byron didn't actually get that chance. Daniel Suarez didn't get that chance, but you would imagine that those two would have been at least in championship contention if they had returned for a second Xfinity Series season. Chase Elliott didn't actually get back-to-back championships, which is crazy to think about, but he did end up getting the one. I think Cindric does go back-to-back here. This track just suits Penske. It suits their driving style. And it shoots their car. It's been that way for a lot of years here. That 22 car has been one of the cars to beat, if not the car to beat at Phoenix. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. And Daniel Hamrick's first Xfinity Series championship or any win falls just short to Austin Cindric here this weekend. They're going to be strong though. Hamrick did well in the spring here with JGR, led a couple of laps, had some incidents there late though that derailed them from having a shot.
I think the important note here is the Owners' Championship. And this is one that's going to significantly play a role in this race when you look at Jon Hunter Nemechek being in that 54 car for this race. And I think everyone that has even remotely paid attention to the Xfinity Series this season knows how dominant that 54 car has been, no matter who's been in it, with the exception of Ty Dillon. Sorry, Ty Dillon, but that's a really tough look for you. Jon Hunter Nemechek going in at a track that he's pretty good at in Phoenix as well. I think they're going to go out and win this race and win the Owners' Championship. I also love the play from Joe Gibbs to toss in Jon Hunter Nemechek for this race. I think that's a really, really smart play on their behalf. So I don't think that the Xfinity Series champion is going to be a race winner. And there's always one championship that something dumb happens. So I'm going to say Daniel Hamrick wins the Xfinity Series championship despite not winning a race in the most Daniel Hamrick redemption arc possible. There's always one that's dumb. There's always one. We saw it Matt Crafton a couple years back. We had the chaos of a restart at the end with Brett Moffitt getting screwed over and stuff like that. There's always one championship that's dumb. So why not have it the most fun, dumb thing possible? Let's say a Jon Hunter Nemechek victory with Daniel Hamrick finishing second in true Daniel Hamrick fashion to go out and win a championship with no wins in his career.
Oh God. That would make me look like an idiot.
Is that not like the most like hilarious possibility though?
He's not even in the battle for the Owners' Championship. He's 5th. He's not even
would that not be the best though? Like, wouldn't that be the best?
Oh God, you would never let me hear the end of that. You would never, ever.
I don't even care. I just think that would be hilarious. Like I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Cindric is gonna walk away with the drivers' championship. But come on, that would be pretty funny.
I do have Jon Hunter Nemechek winning the race this weekend for the Xfinity Series, though.
Yeah.
I wanted to preface that, but I think they win the owners' championship. That 54 car finished second here in the spring with Ty Gibbs.
An owners' championship battle, not a drivers' championship battle this weekend. I think it's going to be between the 54 and 22 for the owners' championship and the race.
Just like the good old days.
Oh, but, come on. You have to admit, if it happens where Nemechek wins and Hamrick finishes second and wins the championship, is that not the funniest possibility this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, if he wins it, man. Oh man, NASCAR Nation's gonna go nuts.
And I want to see it so badly.
My
God.
If he's gonna win the championship, at least let him win the race. I think
it would be better. I think it would be better if he won the championship without winning the race.
I just couldn't handle that, man.
I just want the most Daniel Hamrick thing possible.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what happens. Going with Hamrick. I'm going with Cindric. But we're both going with the 54 to win the owners championship this weekend with the race victory. So as long as they don't beat themselves, you imagine that 54 is going to end up with another winner sticker. I just cheer
for chaos this weekend, and that's the most chaotic thing I can think of. So
it is pretty chaotic, I got to say. The big one, Kyle, it's time. The Cup Series championship predictions. Pre-playoffs, we have 2 of the 4 correct, I believe. No.
I have no clue. I'll be honest.
You have 1 of the 4, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have Truex.
I went bold with my championship. So
yeah, you had you went Larson as your champion. I went.
No, I meant like my championship 4. I went bold with.
Yeah, you had Byron instead of Truex. Essentially, that's what it was. But we both didn't have Hamlin and Elliott in there. 2 returning from last season, 2 and 2, 2 new ones, 2 familiar faces. Will it turn out to be similar or in vain for some of these guys at Phoenix? Let's get into our predictions for this one. You go first for this one, Kyle. Who do you have finishing 4th and finishing the worst of the championship 4 on Sunday?
I got to go Chase Elliott for this one. They've just been, of the championship 4 guys, they've been a pretty distant fit or 4th of the bunch in terms of 750 speed season long. They've had their moments, but overall it hasn't been the same season as it was last year on the 750 tracks, where they were a true contender week in, week out on those tracks. Hasn't been the same this season. And so for that, unless they have a big turnaround, which they could, but I just don't really see it when I look at how the championship race played out last year and kind of falling in line with the season long 750 speed results. This year, I don't really see it happening for Chase Elliott unless they can turn around in that championship race, which based off of season-long performance, I think is a bit of a longer shot than some people are giving it credit for. Doesn't have an oval win this season. I think they'll need to go out and win this race if they're going to win the championship. I just don't see it formalizing for Chase Elliott, so he's my number 4 guy.
Same here. Just the longest shot for me this weekend. I don't know what to expect from the 9 car, and I really hope he doesn't win it.
Wow.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't. Yeah, I'm going to be harsh. I really hope he doesn't win it this weekend. He's not deserving of the championship this season. You could make the argument maybe more last season. The circumstances fell his way. He got hot at the right time, yada, yada, yada. It's a great storyline, whatever.
You're going down a slippery slope if we're talking about people who deserve championships and stuff like that, because this format is not about who deserves it.
I understand that, but I just think when you look at the people that are in there this season, last year was more of a toss-up with who was left. I would say, it was kind of a weird championship for this time. You have your clear favorites and your clear, non-favorites who season long, who's deserving of it. And I can absolutely say that Chase Elliott is not that. He's won 2 races on a road course and just hasn't had the speed on 750 tracks or 550 tracks. In terms of race winning ability, he's been consistent. Don't get me wrong, but I need to see something from that 9 car in order for me to think that he's going to go out there and win it. So Chase Elliott finishes 4th for me here at Phoenix. 3rd, if you hadn't guessed by my fantasy lineup, I've got my top 2 being the championship favorites. I think Truex comes 3rd here. I think he'll be really, really good. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll maybe lead some laps at some point in time, but they may not quite keep up with the track or something like that, or just something will go against the 19 cars way. I think the one thing that kind of held me back, or I'm hesitant on with the 19 this weekend, was the performance at Martinsville. I was expecting more of a dominant day or more consistent front running day, leading laps, but they didn't quite show it there. And they were kind of a third to seventh place car for the majority of the day. They were decent, did everything right, obviously, to get the points they needed to advance, and credit to them for that. But saying that, I just think that that's a track that Truex has shined at lately. And when you look at Denny Hamlin's speed late in that race, you have to think the advantage is going in the 11th way, like I mentioned earlier. So I think Truex ends up third here, but a very solid performance on Sunday and a formidable challenge against the top two.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they're not up there leading laps and stuff like that. But the difference for me, and I do have him third here as well, is that last year, as an example, we saw with having 2 races at the championship race, something that was foreign to us. We had only seen the one race at the end of the season, Homestead, stuff like that. And the dominant car in the earlier race in the season at Phoenix was not the dominant car at the championship race. It was Chase Elliott who went out and dominated, of course, the championship race. Brad Keselowski was strong there as well in the championship race, might have actually won the championship if it wasn't for a bad pit stop there, or a couple bad pit stops. But in the spring race, it was Joey Logano that won. Of course, Chase Elliott did wreck out in that race, so maybe he would have gone out and won and stuff like that. But it was a different performance. It was a different car at the end of that race in the fall. And so we do have practice. We do have qualifying. I do think that'll be a factor. I do think that lends more to the veteran there and Truex and stuff like that. But I do still think that they're going to be the third car here. Just when I look at season long, third in terms of 750 speed, they've been good, but that's a big gap between the race wins earlier this season and now. Richmond was a good performance, but again, that was at night versus this race, which is going to be more during the day in the heat and stuff like that. So if it was maybe a little bit later, if it goes later somehow and it goes under the lights or something like that, Truex, I do think, will be the guy to watch for if it does get into some darkness and stuff like that. But just based off of how it is right now, it's going to finish in the daylight and stuff like that. So I do think the advantage does go to the Larson Hamlin duo. So I've got Truex third.
Alrighty. This is it. The final
pick
of the 2021 season. Let's hear it, Kyle. What do you got for your champion prediction? Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson?
Kind of played my cards already, both of us, with the manufacturer organization pick, stuff like that. But for me, last year, the 750, the best car on 750 tracks was Chase Elliott. He made the championship 4. He won the race. So I don't see why I can't go and bet on the same thing. Denny Hamlin season long has been the most consistent, fastest guy on 750 tracks. In the playoffs, he's shown an ability to win on those 750 tracks, even with Kyle Larson being good around him. And everything is shaping up for it to be that Hamlin year. Last year, they were great season long. They had a championship battle season long with Kevin Harvick. Harvick didn't make the championship race. Everyone was looking at Hamlin to finally break through and win, except season long, they weren't that good on 750 tracks, and it showed in that championship race. This year, they've learned from that. They've made fixes to their team. They've been the fastest car season long on 750 tracks. Everything's shaping up for this championship race. I think they're going to go up for redemption, and I think Hamlin's going to finally break through. I've got him as your Cup Series champion for 2021.
That's the one I least want to happen this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's mean. That's just mean.
I just don't want it to happen, man. Hamlin irks me the wrong way. And I don't want it to happen. And I just don't think it will happen. I just don't think Hamlin is clutch enough when it matters most. He's choked in the past.
See, but everybody is quote unquote not clutch and chokes and whatever until they win.
Yeah, well,
that's the issue I have with that argument. It's a lot of luck-based stuff. It's a lot of this and that. We've seen him in the past go out and win in the round of 8 and stuff like that to get through to a championship race, things like that. So I do think it's overstated. And I think the advantage they have on 750 tracks, as close as it is with Larson, to be fair. But I don't really buy into the choke kind of stuff there.
They're prone to mistakes, and I more so than Kyle Larson. I'd say this season,
2 speeding penalties in this race earlier this season, speeding penalty last time out at Martinsville.
Hamlin's more of a chronic speeding penalty master than anybody.
I think if you look at season long, I think Larson probably has more speeding penalties for sure.
Maybe. I don't know. I would love to know the stat on that, but
I don't know if there's anywhere to find it, but
I'm going to go with Kyle Larson to win the championship this year. I had him finishing second in my initial bracket, but obviously that can't happen this time around with my champion pick not being in it. I don't know. I would hate for it to not be Kyle Larson this weekend, given how well he's performed this season. He's been right there with Denny Hamlin the entire year on 750 speed as well. I think back to Darlington, obviously, where he just sent it in and they just were so freaking close there at the end. I don't know. It's going to be so damn close between these two. I really want to see them go head to head. I don't know. I don't know what to think going into this weekend in terms of who's the favorite, because I don't think you can pick a clear favorite between these two. They're so evenly matched. It just comes down to which one brings a better piece at the end of the day. I'm going to give maybe the slight edge to Cliff Daniels for bringing a very good piece for Jimmy Johnson last season and finishing 5th behind the championship 4. And they had a really solid car in the spring. Like it's very similar to what Chase Elliott experienced last year, where probably the fastest car in the spring race at Phoenix had issues that derailed that efforts in going for that race victory. Same thing with Kyle Larson, self-inflicted kind of speeding penalties and everything like that prevented from him getting up there and challenging for the victory. Hamlin was very good in the spring. Don't get me wrong. Led laps, was in the top 5, finishing 3rd. But I don't know. I'm going to give just the edge to Larson because I want it to happen. And I just don't want Hamlin to win it. I just, the guy gets away with a lot of stuff, in my opinion, and says a lot of.
What do you mean by that?
Like, he says a lot of things that rub me the wrong way.
Like what? I'm curious.
Just like last weekend, I just think he handled that so poorly. It's
How so?
Going after Bowman after the checkered flag, that's a no-no. I'm sorry. Like you can't do that.
So to be clear, you defend your guy bumping the pace car, but somebody doing that after the race is bad?
Because that was more of a racing incident at Martinsville. That was NASCAR's stupidity at New Hampshire. That's NASCAR's fault.
So because NASCAR's stupid, it's fine what your guy does, but because somebody in the race is stupid, you can't retaliate?
But I just think
I just think it's a double standard here. That's all.
I don't.
Obviously you don't. But
if I would have anybody pumping the pace car after New Hampshire. I think that's honestly, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Like if Brad Keselowski did that or Joey Logano did that, I wouldn't care. Like I think it would be funny. But getting wrecked out, it's a racing deal. Like I don't think Hamlin need to be all upset. It's not like he missed the championship 4. Then I could understand it. Then I could be like, okay, yeah,
it's a race win.
But it didn't mean anything.
Martinsville clock.
I don't know. He's got 5 already. I don't think that it's gonna really.
He's a Virginia native. It's arguably the most important race to him.
He's getting booed out of the racetrack though. So like, clearly he's doing something wrong. Most people are
Hendrick Motorsports fans, and he wrecked Chase Elliott a couple years ago trying to go after one.
I think he's gone about this I think people make him out to be like too much of a fan favorite, if you will.
Nobody's calling him a fan favorite. What are you talking about?
No, I just think the media plays into him too much. I think
nobody's calling him a fan favorite. I think you're way off on this one, but
I don't know. That's just my opinion, at least. But my gripes with Denny Hamlin aside, I think he finished 2nd in this championship battle with Kyle Larson. So there it is. We'll put up a graphic on Instagram showing who our championship picks are going into the weekend, and of course our fantasy
picks. And so you'll
picks.
know who not to bet on.
Exactly. Any of the picks that we have made this weekend, I guess that's 5 different guys that we have across the board, with you having Hamrick and Hamlin and same truck. So let the rest happen. I guess it's gonna be insane. Hopefully that it's gonna be a very entertaining race on Sunday, Saturday, and Friday night. But that'll do it for our fantasy preview, our championship preview for Phoenix. This is it, Kyle. One last one. We'll have most likely a race recap or weekend recap for the championship finale, maybe on Monday or something like that, depending on when schedules work, to kind of recap the season and give our thoughts on the championship finale weekend. But any final thoughts before we wrap up the final preview episode of 2021 for NASCAR?
Yeah, just a big weekend coming up. Like I said off the top, a lot of drivers have an opportunity to really change either people's perspectives on them. Just looking at Hamlin and just, for example, the choking stuff, I do think that it's overstated just kind of in general in sports. It's a lot more luck based than people give it credit for. But the thought is there that he's a quote unquote choke, can't finish in the big moment. He has an opportunity to go out and change that. You look at somebody like Jon Hunter Nemechek, who went back to the Truex Series to go out and win that hardware, to go out and improve his resume. Some people have criticized that move. If he goes out and wins a championship and sets himself up for another championship next year, all of a sudden that tide starts to turn and you start to compliment that decision to go out and win those championships and stuff like that. And so that doesn't even talk about the Xfinity Series and all the different stuff there with AJ Allmendinger trying to prove himself in stock cars and all these kind of things. There's a lot of different storylines to watch for this weekend. And so hopefully it shapes up for a good weekend of racing. Again, I've been very vocal about it. I don't like the playoff format. I think at the very least you need a points format over like the final 10 races, such as the chase and stuff like that at the very least. But it's the format that it is. It's the way that it is. It's not going to change anytime soon or ever. And so you got to accept it for what it is. And hopefully it shapes up for some good racing at the end of these things.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how the traction compound plays a role in this weekend, because the spring race was.
Do we know if they're doing PJ1 or resin or?
I'm not sure. I didn't check what Bob tweeted. I think he said that they're doing something. I'm not sure which one it was. The Highline was definitely the advantageous one in the spring race here. It kind of became a little bit too top heavy, I would say, just riding the Highline a bit too much. But all indications are that it's going to be a decent championship weekend here. I'm looking forward to seeing how practice and qualifying makes an impact on this weekend. Only the 7th time this season that we've had it. So I'm looking forward to that coming back next season for however long the practice session may be. At least it is something to give the guys a little bit of an understanding on how their car is going into the weekend. And that should be an interesting factor in how this championship battle plays out. Who can adjust their car, who sets themselves up for the best adjustability into their race cars on Sunday and comes out on top lifting the championship trophy. So going to be an exciting one, going to be a tense one for if you're a fan of any of these guys going into this weekend, but we're looking forward to it nonetheless. But make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag Pod, as well as Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. We'd really, really appreciate it. All the links to our social channels will be in the description of the video. Make sure to give NASCAR on TSN a follow. The final weekend of the year for myself on that front. Looking forward to wrapping the season up with a bang, and hopefully there's some entertaining content that comes out of that, and maybe some good post-game or post-race blurbs or something like that. I don't know.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
Love to see a little bit of tension rise at Phoenix here. But for this episode, I've been Lucas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman, signing off for now. We will talk to you very, very soon to recap the championship weekend from Phoenix. But until then, enjoy the racing and enjoy the championship battle this weekend, everybody.